So later on in the service, we're going to be sharing communion together. And I just wanted to quickly explain a little bit about why we do that. Communion is a really special moment that remembers the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus actually talks about this in the scriptures, and he encourages us that communion is one of the things that we have to continue to do. As church family, no matter where we are or how difficult the circumstances might be, he says this is a thing that you need to do to remember me. And basically, depending on your church tradition and experience, you might know communion by another name and by doing it in a slightly different way. But at its core, it was a meal that was often used by the Israelites to remember a very significant time in their history where God saved them. And so this was a meal that they referred to as the Passover, and it was actually that meal that Jesus was having with his disciples when he brought about this new tradition. And so they were sharing this meal together, and Jesus took bread and he took wine, two very core ingredients that would have been around at most of the meals. And he said, okay, these everyday objects, what I want you to do is I want you to use them to remember me, because I'm not going to be here physically with you forever. And so while I'm gone and before I come back, at some point later on in history, you're going to have this meal as a regular thing, as a tradition that's going to help you to remember me, to concentrate on me, and for me to speak to you. And so what he did was he took bread and he took wine, and they both became independent symbols. So the wine represented his blood shed for us as he died, and his body is represented in the bread that we eat. And both of those symbols, effectively, we take them as part of a meal, and we take them together, which symbolizes our unity as Christians and as believers. And it's a very serious thing. It's two really simple objects, but what they do is they remind us of the fact that Jesus lived as a physical human being about 2,000 years ago, that he died on a cross and gave his life up for us. And so in one way, the meal is very sad and it's very serious, but in another, in the same breath, really, we remember that Jesus rose again. And so actually the meal is a celebration too. But the most important thing, really, is to let God speak to you through it. It's important not to try and read too much onto it, to project our own feelings onto it and how we're doing, and to try and force up some spiritual experience. The whole point of communion, really, is to set time aside and to say, God, I'm remembering that you gave your life up for me in the form of Jesus on the cross. God, would you speak to me now? And so as we share communion later on, I just wanted to encourage you that it's an opportunity for us to connect with God, to reflect on the sacrifice of Jesus, and to allow that to speak to us. So don't be put off by it. We know it's a little bit weird doing it remotely. But if you've got any questions about communion, please get in touch with us. But we're really happy that we get to share that together later on together. We hope that it will encourage you and that you will hear from God as a result of it.